Throughout history, trade routes have shaped the development of civilizations, fostering economic growth, cultural exchange, and political power. From the Silk Road to the trans-Saharan routes, these networks connected distant regions, enabling the spread of goods, ideas, religions, and technologies. The impact of these trade routes is still evident today, with many cultural practices, languages, and economic models tracing their roots to these ancient pathways. The Silk Road, a path of prosperity. The Silk Road was one of the most significant trade routes in human history, linking China to the Mediterranean. Spanning thousands of kilometers, this route facilitated the exchange of silk, spices, precious stones, and other valuable goods. The Silk Road was not merely a commercial network, but a bridge of ideas, spreading Buddhist, Christian, and Islamic thought across continents. Cities like Samarkand, Bokhara, and Xi'an flourished as trading hubs, where merchants from diverse backgrounds met to exchange not only commodities but also artistic techniques, medical knowledge, and political philosophies. The transmission of papermaking from China to the Middle East and Europe revolutionized communication, while the introduction of spices like cinnamon and cloves shaped global cuisine. The Silk Road also spurred advancements in metallurgy, textiles, and agricultural techniques. Chinese innovations such as gunpowder and the magnetic compass found their way westward, while Persian glasswork and Indian mathematics moved eastward, enriching global scientific progress. Additionally, diplomatic relations were cultivated along the Silk Road, as Chinese emissaries engaged with Persian and Roman envoys. These interactions forged alliances, introduced foreign luxuries to distant courts, and established new trade policies that influenced regional stability for centuries. Cultural exchanges flourished, resulting in artistic influences seen in pottery, painting styles, and even musical traditions. The blending of Persian motifs with Chinese silk designs illustrates this rich fusion. Furthermore, languages evolved, with Persian words entering Chinese vocabulary and vice versa. The Silk Road is neither an actual road nor a single route. The term instead refers to a network of routes used by traders for more than 1,500 years, from when the Han Dynasty of China opened trade in 130 BC until 1453 CE, when the Ottoman Empire closed off trade with the West. German geographer and traveler Ferdinand von Richthofen first used the term Silk Road in 1877 C to describe the well-traveled pathway of goods between Europe and East Asia. The term also serves as a metaphor for the exchange of goods and ideas between diverse cultures. Although the trade network is commonly referred to as the Silk Road, some historians favor the term Silk Routes because it better reflects the many paths taken by traders. The Silk Road extended approximately 6,437 kilometers, 4,000 miles across some of the world's most formidable landscapes, including the Gobi Desert and the Pamir Mountains. With no one government to provide upkeep, the roads were typically in poor condition. Robbers were common to protect themselves. Traders joined together in caravans with camels or other pack animals. Over time, large inns called caravanserais cropped up to house traveling merchants. Few people traveled the entire route, giving rise to a host of middlemen and trading posts along the way. An abundance of goods traveled along the Silk Road. Merchants carried silk from China to Europe, where it dressed royalty and wealthy patrons. Other favorite commodities from Asia included jade and other precious stones, porcelain, tea, and spices. In exchange, horses, glassware, textiles, and manufactured goods traveled eastward. One of the most famous travelers of the Silk Road was Marco Polo. 1254 c. 1324 born into a family of wealthy merchants in Venice, Italy. Marco traveled with his father to China, then Cathay, when he was just 17 years of age. They traveled for over 3 years before arriving at Kublai Khan's palace at Xanadu in 1275 c. Marco stayed on at Khan's court and was sent on missions to parts of Asia never before visited by Europeans. Upon his return, Marco Polo wrote about his adventures, making him and the routes he traveled famous. It is hard to overstate the importance of the Silk Road on history. Religion and ideas spread along the Silk Road just as fluidly as goods. Towns along the route grew into multicultural cities. The exchange of information gave rise to new technologies and innovations that would change the world. The horses introduced to China contributed to the might of the Mongol Empire, while gunpowder from China changed the very nature of war in Europe and beyond. Diseases also traveled along the Silk Road. Some research suggests that the Black Death, which devastated Europe in the late 1340s CE, likely spread from Asia along the Silk Road. The age of exploration gave rise to faster routes between the East and West, but parts of the Silk Road continued to be critical pathways among varied cultures. Today, parts of the Silk Road are listed on UNESCO's World Heritage List. The trans-Saharan trade routes, the vast desert landscape of the Sahara was crossed by daring merchants who traded gold, salt, ivory, and enslaved people between West Africa and North Africa. Caravans carrying thousands of camels traveled across these harsh terrains, fostering powerful trade empires such as Ghana, Mali, and Songhai. The city of Timbuktu became a beacon of knowledge and commerce, renowned for its universities and wealth. The gold trade played a pivotal role in funding the prosperity of medieval Europe, while the spread of Islam reshaped the cultural landscape of North and West Africa. Scholars like Ahmed Baba and Leo Africanus chronicled the intellectual and economic achievements of this period, solidifying Timbuktu as a center of learning. In addition to wealth, trans-Saharan routes facilitated the spread of architectural styles and governance methods. Fortified desert oases became crucial trading stations, where cultures blended to form unique artistic traditions and linguistic hybrids. The trade of manuscripts and knowledge enhanced legal, philosophical, and scientific advancements in the region. Cultural exchange fostered social transformations as well. The integration of Islamic customs with local traditions created unique social norms that shaped daily life, legal systems, and education in West Africa. The maritime spice routes, while land routes dominated Central Asia and Africa, maritime trade routes connected Southeast Asia, India, the Arabian Peninsula, and East Africa. The Indian Ocean trade network was vital in transporting spices, textiles, and precious stones. Coastal cities like Calicut, Zanzibar, and Malacca thrived as essential trading posts. Arab, Chinese, and Indian sailors navigated these routes using sophisticated knowledge of monsoon winds, which allowed them to time their voyages effectively. This network facilitated the diffusion of religions like Hinduism, Buddhism, and Islam, alongside diverse architectural and artistic styles. The maritime routes also enabled the growth of powerful trading empires, such as the Srivijaya Kingdom in Indonesia and the Swahili coast city-states in East Africa. These regions became cultural melting pots, blending indigenous traditions with foreign influences. Porcelain from China, textiles from India, and spices from Indonesia transformed trade centers into hubs of innovation and wealth. Naval technology innovations, such as the development of the dhow and junk ships, improved long-distance travel and increased trade capacity. Merchants also established credit systems and cooperative guilds to manage international business across vast distances. Trade along the maritime routes also fueled advancements in medical practices. Remedies, herbs, and medical knowledge moved between India, the Middle East, and Africa, influencing treatments and public health strategies in multiple civilizations. The spice routes were maritime paths linking the east to the west. Pepper, cloves, cinnamon, and nutmeg were all hugely sought-after commodities in Europe, but before the 15th century, North African and Arab middlemen controlled access to trade with the East, making such spices extremely costly and rare. From the 15th to the 17th centuries, new navigation technology made sailing long distances from Europe possible. Europeans took to the seas to forge direct trading relationships with Indonesia, China, and Japan. Some have argued the spice trade fueled the development of faster ships, encouraged colonization, and fostered new diplomatic relationships between East and West. Christopher Columbus had spices on his mind when he set out on his famous voyage in 1492. The Portuguese, Dutch, and English especially profited from the control of the spice trade in modern-day Indonesia, particularly the area called Malacca, which was the only source of nutmeg and cloves at that time. Wars were fought, lands colonized, and fortunes made from the spice trade, making this trade route one of the most globally significant. The incense route developed to transport frankincense and myrrh, which are found only in the southern end of the Arabian Peninsula, modern Yemen and Oman. Frankincense and myrrh are both derived from sun-dried tree sap. These nuggets can then be burned as incense or used as perfume, and were also popular in burial rituals to aid embalming. After Arab nomads domesticated the camel around 1000 BCE, traders began transporting their valuable incense to the Mediterranean, an important commercial hub. Frankincense and myrrh became a significant commodity for the Romans, Greeks, and Egyptians. It was said the Roman Emperor Nero had a whole year's harvest of frankincense burned at the funeral of his beloved mistress. The trade flourished and, at its height, saw 3,000 tons of incense traded along its length every year. Roman historian Pliny the Elder wrote that it took 62 days to complete the route. Although it's clear that at times, the exact route shifted when greedy settlements pushed their luck and demanded taxes that were too high from the caravans coming through. By the 1st century CE, this ancient overland route became largely redundant after improved ship design made sea routes more attractive. Amber has been traded since about 3000 BC, with archaeological evidence revealing amber beads from the Baltic Sea region having reached as far as Egypt. The Romans, who valued the stone like resin for both decorative and medicinal purposes, developed an amber road linking the Baltic states with the rest of Europe. Large deposits of amber are found under the Baltic Sea, formed millions of years ago when forests covered the area. The amber washes ashore after storms and can be harvested from the beaches across the Baltic, which is how many local amber traders built their business. However, during the Crusades in the 12th and 13th centuries, the Baltic became an important source of income for the Teutonic Knights, who were granted control of the amber-producing region. The knights persecuted their Prussian opponents brutally and put anyone attempting to harvest or sell amber to death. Today, you can find traces of the old Amber Road in Poland, where one of the major routes is known as the Amber Highway. This ancient route winds for more than 6,000 miles through the Hungwan Mountains, a major tea-producing area in China, and onto Tibet and India. The road also crosses numerous rivers, making it one of the most dangerous of the ancient trade routes. The main goods traveling the route were Chinese tea and Tibetan warhorses, with direct trades of tea for horses and vice versa being the main goal of merchants plying the route. Parts of the route were used starting about 1600 BCE, but people began using the entire path for trade from around the 7th century CE, and large-scale trade began taking place starting in the Song dynasty 960 to 1279. Research suggests that between 960 to 1127, some 20,000 Tibetan warhorses were traded along the route every year in exchange for 8,000 tons of tea. As sea routes became more popular, the road's significance decreased. But during World War II, it once again gained importance as Japanese troops blocked many seaports and the tea horse road became a key route for supplies traveling between inland China and India. Salt has long been a precious commodity. It's used to flavor and preserve food, and as an antiseptic, for example. But easily harvested salt was a scarce commodity in antiquity, so areas rich in the mineral became important trading centers. Routes connecting these centers to other settlements also became commonplace. Out of the many such routes that sprang up, one of the most famous was the Roman Via Salarius Salt Road, which ran from Ostia, near Rome, across Italy to the Adriatic coast. Salt was so precious. It made up a portion of a Roman soldier's pay. From the Latin word for salt, sal, we get salary, and the phrase not worth his salt, the latter because a soldier's salt pay was docked if he did not work hard. Another important salt route across Europe was the Old Salt Road. This path ran 62 miles from Lüneburg in northern Germany, which was one of the most plentiful salt sources in northern Europe, to Lübeck on the North German coast. During the Middle Ages, this route became vital for providing salt for the fishing fleets that left Germany for Scandinavia. The crews used salt to preserve the precious herring catched. It would take a cart delivering salt some 20 days to traverse the Old Salt Road, and many towns along the way grew wealthy by levying taxes and duties on wagons as they passed through. The trans-Saharan trade route from North Africa to West Africa was actually made up of a number of routes, creating a crisscross of trading links across the vast expanse of desert. These trade routes first emerged in the 4th century CE. By the 11th century, caravans composed of more than 1,000 camels would carry goods across the Sahara. Gold, salt, cloth, and enslaved people were traded along the route. as were objects like ostrich feathers and European guns. The trade route was instrumental in the spread of Islam from the Berbers in North Africa into West Africa. And with Islam came Arabic knowledge, education, and language. The trans-Saharan trade route also encouraged the development of monetary systems and state building, as local rulers saw the strategic value in bringing large swaths of land, and thus their commodities, under their control.By. The 16th century, as Europeans began to see the value in African goods, the trans-Saharan trade routes were overshadowed by the European-controlled transatlantic trade, and the wealth moved from inland to coastal areas, making the perilous desert routes less attractive. From the Bronze Age to the Iron Age, the tin route was a major artery that provided early settlements with access to a vital ingredient for metal making. Copper must be alloyed with tin to make bronze, an advance that occurred in the Near East around 2800 BCE and created a stronger, better metal than the type used previously. This new technology created a demand for tin, and because it isn't found in many places, the resource became an important item for trade. One such tin route flourished in the first millennium BCE. It stretched from the tin mines in Cornwall in the far southwest of Britain, over the sea to France, and then southeast to Greece and beyond. Evidence for this route is provided by the many hill forts that sprang up along the way as trading posts. Historians believe trade passed both ways up and down this route. Evidence from the hill forts includes exotic artifacts, such as coral and gold. The impact on global societies. The influence of these trade routes transcended economic gain. Scientific discoveries, medical practices, and artistic techniques moved seamlessly between regions. The blending of Persian, Indian, and Greek ideas contributed to the development of algebra, while Chinese printing techniques influenced European Renaissance advancements. Trade routes also played a major role in the transmission of diseases, most notably the Black Death, which spread through Eurasia in the 14th century, devastating populations but ultimately accelerating social and economic transformation. The rise of merchant classes in Europe, the formation of banking systems, and the introduction of standardized currencies were all byproducts of global trade routes. These developments contributed to the early stages of globalization, laying the groundwork for modern financial systems. Furthermore, social structures adapted as merchant families gained power and cultural influence. Marriages between merchants from different regions led to the blending of customs, religious practices, and artistic expressions, leaving a lasting mark on global heritage. Modern legacies of ancient trade routes today. The remnants of these ancient networks persist in global trade patterns, language evolution, and cultural traditions. Modern infrastructure projects like China's Belt and Road Initiative reflect echoes of the Silk Road's influence, while archaeological discoveries continue to reveal the interconnectedness of past civilizations. Cities that once stood at the crossroads of these networks continue to thrive. Istanbul, for example, still serves as a major trade hub between Europe and Asia, while the port of Aden retains strategic importance in global maritime trade. Contemporary trade agreements and geopolitical strategies echo the diplomacy and partnerships first established by these ancient pathways, showing their enduring relevance in shaping world order. The impact of ancient trade routes extends far beyond commerce, influencing social structures, cultural identity, and global connectivity. By exploring these networks, we gain a deeper understanding of humanity's shared history and the forces that continue to shape our world today.